It's like there's plenty of churches.
I've already got it notarized and all that, so he's got the shoes.
They said something today too about how church attendance has dropped because people sitting at home watching online, rather why get up and get ready for church when you stay at home. You know, easy chair, rare back watching.
Yeah. It's,
Southern Baptist churches, they've seen a decline in attendance for the last 10 years. You know, it keeps dropping. They keep pinpoint, on different things, but I mean, if you look at culture and everything, and the emergence of different churches and good churches that aren't, I mean, they're like, non-denominational, whatever. I think a lot of it was like we're just kind of failing to get out and evangelize. That's kind of what it all boils down to. The KBC, that's been their focus. The last evangelism, they've been just driven, and that's been their focus, and that's going to continue to be their focus. The whole thing with revival is a revival. They want every church to have a revival this year.
That's what they're aiming for.
Yep, and we're going to. I think we're going to have a good one. So. Well, we're live, everyone. So good to see you all. Did we come up, Lana? All right. Glad to see everybody. Everybody have a good week? So far? Busy? I know. I have worked outside. It's been so hot. We've started early, and we've been working outside. And I just come home every night and it's kind of like melted. I was like drained. I was like, zapped. So, but Monday was really, really hot. It's cooled down a little bit since Monday.
I said they're supposed to be better tomorrow.
No, Friday. Morris was here last night.
All right. Well, as we look over our prayer list, I do have. Let's remember, Earl's family, passing of his father. Visitation will be tomorrow after 5:30. The funeral is at 1. And from the way I read it, the visitation and funeral, everything's at Newton Creek Baptist Church. Is that correct?
Might be your obituary.
Yep. That's.
I was at the florist earlier. It is.
Okay. I wanted to. I know on the obituary, if you looked at the visitation time, unless they've changed the date, they actually had Friday date for the visitation, and it was like they had the funeral and then visitation, but it had the same day. But up in the actual obituary, it said Thursday, and so remember them. And I have also a request. I have friends in Bean Station, Tennessee. Anybody familiar with Bean Station, Tennessee? Well, it's around. Well, it is. It's down around Tazewell and Knoxville. Yeah, around Morristown, Bean Station, Tazewell, Morristown, Knoxville. Dear friend, I met them at camp. The daughter, her name is Abby. She was in the 8th grade when I first met them at camp. I was their camp pastor. And it was just a family that every year at camp, they came to where I was at. And I've been in their home, met like if I'm in the area, they had me in and fed me. It's just really neat, some neat friends. She sent me a message. They have a 4-month-old. It would be my friend Abby. It's her nephew. Her cousin. It's her mom and dad's nephew. His name is Maverick Couch. He's 4 months old. Stage 4 neuroblastoma. They just found out. And so if you put little Maverick, that's spelled just like Maverick, like the TV show and the Couch, Couch, Maverick Couch. He's 4 months old. And she sent me a message yesterday, asked if I would put them on the church's prayer list. And so, good folks. They're really shaken up over this. So. appreciate you all putting him on there. VBS starts next week. This time next week we'll be knee deep in Vacation Bible School. And so I'm excited.
Did we decide that we were still meeting that Wednesday night?
No.
We're not. No,
Oh, okay.
we're not. No.
We went out to have it else. Okay, yeah.
Yep.
Father's Day. but
Yeah,
I-
there will be.
With Vacation Bible School, I didn't know whether or not.
We're starting the 10 Commandments tonight, and then we'll be off for Bible school next week, and then the following week we'll finish up Exodus. Any the feeding program this morning go good? I mean, is it still
2 people, they gave out 2 meals.
2 million?
Nobody come.
What they do with those food?
I got it.
We took.
Shelley brought it to me and I'm taking it to the pantry.
Good.
Amen. Yeah.
Good.
So I'll
Well,
take it to the
I
pantry,
know
but
sometimes
no
they're
box
not
full.
finished.
Yeah,
They're not gonna
I
show
mean,
up sometimes.
Yeah.
it's kind of sad. I mean, you know.
It is, but it's. I mean, you know, we.
Oh, yeah. Well, I called
Yep.
Mary Kay, she said, bring it on. We'll
That's
get it
right.
to you."
Thank you, Miss Leslie, for doing that. You're awesome. Feed it. That's good thinking. Anything? Jeff's doing good. He's got. I showed y'all my little bitty 3/4 inch incision, and Jeff's like, mine starts here, goes all around, wraps around here, and then back under here and everything. I was like, man. But he's doing good. He doesn't have. You don't have sling or.
I'm wearing a sling right now.
Are you?
I see the doctor Friday to take me out of it.
Okay. That wasn't on live stream.
Some
Y'all didn't
people
hear
don't
that.
follow
Jeff is wearing his sling. Just like the doctor
He
said.
mowed the yard in it Monday.
I can do this, but I can't do this.
Oh gosh, stop that. I've been wrapping it up and everything. I bumped it today. I was like, oh. And now I'm starting to get sore right there because I'm trying to hold everything in between. I hold like between this finger. But look there. Got some movement. So that's the start. Ready to go for Bible school. Anybody else got any updates on any of our people?
That Darrell Munsell is now at home in Wycliffe where he lives.
Oh, okay.
He hadn't had the COVID vaccine, so they wouldn't take him in a rehab place. So they had to drive him home. And down here on this Jeff Cooper, there's a Jeff Cooper lives around here, and a lot of people were thinking it's him, but this is Jimmy Cooper's son. So we now need to put a footnote out there, Jimmy Cooper's son.
Okay. He's probably getting a lot of people calling him or asking. Well, you know, he's getting prayed for, but not for. You can. You can remove me off that. That way it won't be on there.
Yeah, you take me off
Sunday.
there too.
Jeff
Some
said,
doesn't fall off.
huh?
I said,
I
oh,
don't.
some doesn't fall off.
Well, I know. Don't stop praying. Just take me off the list. Yeah. Jeff said you can. Him too.
Take me off, I'm
Yeah.
recovered.
He's wearing a sling and everything. He's doing good.
Sydney's still having some troubles.
This,
Last night, they went swimming yesterday, and then last night they was never leaving. She passed out like 3 times, and the way Scott described it, sounded like she was having a seizure. And so they've got an appointment with her regular doctor tomorrow.
okay.
They went to the ER last night. They didn't do anything but charge them some money and send them home.
Yeah. And that's tough because there's really nothing else you can do. You
Yeah.
go to the ER. You know, you hate not to.
Yeah,
You
8
can't-
o'clock at night, if you pass out, that's kind of the only option.
Yeah.
They're not going to do anything helpful. So.
I remember Sydney. I have not heard anything on how they had the fundraiser for Brother Marty at Newton Creek Saturday. I haven't heard any amounts or anything, but I know that it turned out real well from what other people have said, so I don't know.
Where do we get the envelopes to give to him?
Hey, Dodie,
Yes, sir.
do we have any kind of envelopes that we can use for Marty Brown? I mean, they don't have to be love offering. I mean, whatever, we can improvise or.
Well, I've got just regular envelopes and stuff, yeah, I could.
So we just put it in an envelope and let Brother Marty.
Yeah,
know.
we can do that. Just
Just a
yeah.
Building fund envelopes?
No, we use most of them.
I didn't know if we had any. We need to probably give us some love offering or special offering. I know that there's one or two in our box.
Yeah, there is in there.
Yes, for the,
Okay, I'll have to
this
look in the
Sunday.
box.
You have to look through the box. Yeah.
What I had thought I would do is I was just gonna lay out front, I have some just regular envelopes.
That'll be fun. As long as we folks have
Yeah,
something.
that, you don't have to lift, you pull the thing off
Oh,
of it.
yeah.
Tap
Yeah, I
it.
think that'll be fine. And we'll just let everybody.
Stick
We'll
it
just
on the front, Brother Marty.
yeah.
I
Yeah,
guess
just-
I could
Write it on.
Yep.
Get some tomorrow. So, yeah, maybe we'll go around and something out there, so, you know,
People know what they are.
Yeah, we'll just let people know that those envelopes, they can use those envelopes and just to make sure, they need to put if they want, contribution credit to make sure they,
yeah.
put their name on it or in it or somewhere. As long as it's on their check, or if they give cash, make sure it's on the envelope so they can, if they want it. If they, some people might not want it, but
Probably get more checks than you will cash.
I'm so I mean, it's just glad the church, glad we're doing that. I haven't heard anything as far as what they raised at their fundraiser last
I
Saturday
haven't
night.
either.
I haven't heard anything else. Well, let's go to the Lord in prayer. And Father, we thank you so much for this day, Lord. I just praise you. I just want to say I love you. And God, thank you for blessing me beyond measure. Thank you for watching over me. Thank you for taking care of me. Thank you for meeting my needs, God, providing. Lord, I'm just overwhelmed by how good you are to me. And Father, we just come to you tonight with our prayer list, Father. It's loaded now. Some of these names, Lord, these folks they've been on here a long time. Been really struggling. Been really battling. And God, I just pray that you will continue to watch over them, Father. Just heal their hurts. Father, just be there for them. Meet their needs. Father, we can't make it without you. And Father, be with Earl and Marcia and the family tonight. The loss of Earl's dad, God. Father, I know what that feels like. It seems like it's all so fresh. God, I just pray you will wrap your arms of comfort and love around that family. And Father, we lift up our VBS. God, you already know who's coming. You already know how many people will be here, God. But Father, I just pray that you'll just send kids. Kids that need Jesus, Father. Kids and their parents that that desperately need you, Father, that are lost, and that they'll hear the word, they'll hear the gospel, they'll hear the truth about Jesus, Father, and that I pray for salvations, Father. I pray that the Holy Spirit will move. And God, that will be kind of like our starting point. That we'll see souls saved and lives changed. I thank you for all those that have worked so hard up to this point even, Father, but that are going to work during Bible school and volunteer. I pray that you will bless them and strengthen them and give them wisdom, Father. Give them opportunities. Let them know, Father, that any time is a good time to share the gospel. If there's opportunity, Father, just if kids ask questions that happen in class, if it's in the snack line, if it's during recreation time, Father, if it's walking in between buildings, Lord, if it's during music, whatever it may be, Father, just maybe be sensitive to the Spirit. And let's use this as a time, Father, that we can evangelize and share the love of Christ. Father, be with those across the road. Father, bless that group of students and adults, Lord. Just be with them tonight. Thank you for them. I thank you for your love and for your grace and for your mercy. Father, I thank you for saving me. Lord, be with us tonight as we open your word and study your word, Father. What a privilege it is to be here. And we thank you for all that you do. We thank you in advance, Father. And we praise you, we love you. We give you all the glory, the honor, and the praise. Amen. Well, tonight, we've been on this journey that started in Egypt. And we have got to the mountain, and God is ready to give His word to the people. Last week they were told, there's specific instructions. Stay off the mountain. Don't cross that line. Don't go on the mountain. Don't have your animals go on the mountain. If you go on the mountain, you'll die. That's it right there. But take the next couple of days. Purify yourself. Wash yourself. Wash your clothes. Get ready. Because God is going to speak. And so that's where we're at. We're in Exodus chapter 20. We're going to look at verses 1 through 11. And I'm going to go ahead and start there. Remember in chapter 19, Moses made 3 trips up the mountain. They set the limits, consecrated. He said, the last part, verse 24 of 19, and the Lord said to him, go down and come up, bringing Aaron and you. But don't let the priest and the people break through to come up to the Lord, lest he break out against them. So Moses went down to the people and told them. So, 2 million people at the base of this mountain. Ready. And chapter 20 starts out like this. And God spoke all these words. This wasn't Moses relaying a message. It's God speaking. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. Verse 3, you shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a carved image or any likeness or anything that is in heaven above or that is in the earth beneath or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them, for I am the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and the fourth generations of those who hate me, but showing steadfast love to thousands of those who love me and keep my commands. Verse 7. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. Number 8, verse 8. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. And on it you shall not do any work, you or your son or your daughter or your male servant or your female servant or your livestock or the sojourner who is within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Verse 12, honor your father and your mother. Excuse me, I wasn't going to go there. I just kept reading. I'm going to stop there because that's getting into the next lesson. I was getting wrapped up. I was just like, hey, there. So here we are. After 2 days of spiritual preparation, the Israelites are at the base of Mount Sinai, ready to receive the law from God. They will remain there for almost a year. The Ten Commandments, as we know them, are the base or the foundation of God's laws. Exodus only covers the surface of the entire message God gave his people. Leviticus covers the rest. Now, I've got this kind of, I pulled this out because it's a reminder, because the nation of Israel, we have to kind of keep those in their context. A lot of folks, when reading about the nation of Israel, they borrow things and promises, and yes, there's biblical truths, but those promises are specifically for them. And so here's the original context. The Israelite nation, they're brand new, just delivered from Typo, 430 years of slavery. They had no idea how to live as a free nation. They'd never experienced freedom. They had no idea of what it means to follow one God. Most likely, they were polytheistic, just like the Egyptians were. God is establishing with them a government, if you will. That word kind of makes you cringe sometimes because you think about our government. I mean, it's not, government's not a bad word. It's structure, but it's really kind of, in essence, is what he's doing. He is the king. He's the ruler. He's over them. These are the instructions on how they are to respond to him and how they are to interact with each other and how they are to represent God to other nations through their relationship with God and each other. And you must also read further into the following chapters of Exodus, plus Numbers, Leviticus, and Deuteronomy. These chapters and books give greater detail and understanding to what God was saying through the Ten Commandments to Israel. So chapter 20, those 10 commandments are just kind of base, a foundation. And everything else kind of shoots off of those. So the first 4 words, if you notice I put the first 4 words. I'm going to explain that. The word commandment is not actually used. Moses used the Hebrew word debarim, which translates words. So a more accurate translation would be the 10 words. Put into a modern day analogy, the content of the 10 words are like a national constitution. The 10 Commandments to Israel are somewhat like the Constitution of the United States. They are legally binding in a most basic foundational way, but more than a mere set of individual laws. The laws that follow the first 10 or the big 10 are regulatory, and the following the principles laid down in the 10. So, like all analogies, it's not like perfect, but it kind of gives you some kind of idea, because they're a nation of people And there's got to be rules of how to live as a nation. So when you understand the structure of the law before we get into that, I made this little chart. Understanding the structure of the law. Jesus himself, you know, when he asked what the greatest commandment was, you know, he replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, your strength, your soul. This is the first greatest commandment. And he said, likewise, the second is love your neighbor as you love yourself. You know, and he says, upon these two, all the others hinge upon it. He's quoted Deuteronomy 6:5 and Leviticus 19:18. So if you look at the two great commandments, to love God and to love others, the first of these commands require a broad term of loyal obedience to God, who is put first above all other relationships. That's why he said love God that's the top. That's the number one. The second, love others, it requires loving, loyal treatment of other human beings. Jesus taught that. The rest of the commandments hang on these. The reference is Matthew 22:40 for Jesus's. Now, if you look at the first one, the first four commandments hang on the command of loving God, since they describe ways to show covenant loyalty directly to Him. The final six on this side, which we'll look at next time, hang on the command to love others as self. The first four, I always like this little illustration because God's just kind of like this. The first four is our vertical relationship between us and God. These, 5 through 10, are a horizontal relationship. Us and everybody else we come in contact with. And it's a beautiful picture of the cross and how Jesus loved us. And how He loved His Father, how He was obedient, and He obeyed Him, yet He stretched out and extended that love to us. And so, I just always thought that's kind of the neatest little picture there. There are also the 613 other commands that follow. Traditional Judaism counts 613 commands in the Pentateuch. They are a mixture of addressing vertical and horizontal concerns. So they're a mixture of all of this. The Pharisees, that's Jesus' main beef with the Pharisees, was these extra biblical additions that they made to the law. God didn't do that. They did that. So, you know, when He says, remember the Sabbath and to keep it holy, they're the ones that said, well, if you take up your mat and you pull your bed behind you, you're making ruts. So technically you're plowing the field, so therefore you're working on the Sabbath. When you spit, you know, they got on to Jesus for when you spit in the mud, well, you're making clay to make bricks. So technically you're working on the Sabbath. That's not in God's commandments. God never. That's what made Jesus so irate with them. You know, they took the 613 and they added to them, making them burdensome for the people. Listen, nobody can keep the 10. Nobody can keep the 1. 613 would be mind-boggling to try to keep. They added to them. And they were actually supposed to be teaching the people how to have this in its true context. They were the spiritual caregivers. They were the ones that were supposed to watch over the people and to teach them this, but they made it harder. And so hopefully that's kind of like gives you a little bit of a overview on how they look. When we look at our text, before we get into our first 4, verse 1, it emphasizes that God spoke the 10 words or 10 commandments. I've said 10 commandments so long, and I say 10 words, it's kind of like, it's like, what? The movie's not called the 10 Words, it's the 10 Commandments. But the 10 Commandments themselves directly to Israel rather than through Moses. This was so frightening to the people that they requested as soon as God finished that he not speak directly to them anymore. Exodus 20:19. Well, 18 says, when all the people saw the thunder and the flashes of lightning and the sound of the trumpet and the mountain smoking, people were afraid and trembled. They stood far off and said to Moses, "You speak to us, and we will listen, but do not let God speak to us, lest we die." And Moses said to the people, "Do not fear God. Do not fear, for God has come to test you, that the fear of him may be before you, that you may not sin." And the people stood far off while Moses drew near to the thick darkness where God was. So that was kind of enough for them. Can't say that I would respond the same way. It would be a rather frightening situation. Verse 2, God starts out, he's identifying himself as the one that delivered them from bondage. He is their God, and they are his people. What a special relationship to have that. So let's look at, I want to look at this real fast before we, do I want to look at this real fast? Yeah, I do. I want to look at this real fast before we go. I probably should have covered this in the end, but since it was in my slides, I'll go ahead and do it now because we've been kind of looking at Jesus and Exodus. They're all parallels between Jesus' Sermon on the Mount and Moses receiving the 10 Commandments. This is kind of obvious. Both took place on a mountain. Mount Sinai is where the 10 Commandments, and then Jesus, the Sermon on the Mount, was a mountain near Capernaum. The law received by the Israelites was not for salvation, but for how followers of God were to live. The Sermon on the Mount wasn't a sermon on how to be born again, but how to live as followers of Christ. The 10 Commandments, God was establishing a covenant with his people. The Sermon on the Mount, Jesus was fulfilling the law and introducing himself to everyone as the Messiah. Jesus even expounded deeper into the commandments. He took them and made them a matter of the heart. He said it's more than just following a list of do's and don'ts, but it's a matter of the heart. You've heard that commandment, thou shalt not commit adultery. But I tell you, if you lust after someone in your heart, you've committed adultery. You've heard that commandment of old, do not commit murder. But I tell you this, if you hate your brother, you've committed murder in your heart. He took it to that next step. He made it, about that relationship, that heart thing. God was addressing a large crowd that was new in their faith. Jesus was addressing a large crowd, but his main audience was his disciples who were new in their faith. So those are kind of interesting little ideas and that I thought I would share that I had got in my reading. So, 10 Commandments. Number 1, you shall have no other gods before me. This command sets Israel apart from the surrounding nations. They would be different than others around them. Everybody around them was polytheistic. And that means they worship multiple gods. The difference is they would worship only one God, and that was Yahweh. And that was going to separate them apart. This is also to remind them of what he did in Egypt to the other gods. He destroyed them. And the land of promise to which they were heading was a polytheistic land. He destroyed them. He gave them over to Israel. And when they get there, they're to remember what their God does to those who oppose him. According to some websites here, I'll not bore you with those. There were approximately 64 Egyptian god and goddesses. By the 400s, the record was over 2,000 deities for ancient Egypt. In Greek mythology, there are 12 main gods, goddesses called Olympians, and the amount of minor gods is uncountable. Romans had hundreds of different gods and goddesses. Their collection was called the Pantheon. Hinduism has 330 million faces of God. Jesus tells us in Matthew 6:24, you cannot serve two gods. You will love one and hate the other. Yep. Anybody got anything to add to the first one there? I know this is kind of like a real refresher course for everybody. I mean, but sometimes we kind of, it's like, it's 10 Commandments.
How could the people who heard this directly from God's mouth, then when Moses was gone for so long, make a golden calf?
They didn't need to, they just threw their stuff in the fire.
They just threw it in the fire and that came out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we all resort back to our default mode. I mean, their life was Moses, if you think about it. I mean, that's he brought them. I mean, and I guess he's gone. They like he's dead. He's gone.
The same reason the apostles went fishing.
Yeah.
'Cause that's all they knew before Jesus, so that's what they went back to.
Yeah.
They lost that.
They lost faith. Yeah.
We do too.
We don't melt gold with fire. I mean, we go back to
That's
some
it, I know.
things.
And I give the people a pass almost. Aaron, not so much. I just kind of like, dude, I mean, you did get to kind of go up, I mean, you're like the second in command there, buddy.
And he'd been there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't know how he survived.
Yeah. And he was afraid of the people. I mean, you know, when you're staring at,
Lost faith too. I mean, I think they all
Maybe
did.
he thought he
They
Yeah.
were reverting back to what Aaron had always lived in Egypt doing.
Yep.
Didn't know what to do, so he did what was familiar.
it's you know, that default mode in us, whatever triggers it, it's kind of like, I think it's the easiest.
The trouble is, we think we gotta do something.
Yeah.
If we just wait.
That's true, Miss Charlotte. That is.
Let God.
That's so true.
Just wait on God.
Yeah.
Timing takes a long time, but we think we gotta do. We don't always have to do, we just need to wait until He does.
Yep, absolutely.
That's like the old joke, God, I want patience and I want it now.
That's it. That's it. Well, number 2, verse 4 through 6, you shall not make for yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third, fourth generations of those who hate me, and showing steadfast love to thousands of those who love me and keep my commands. This command outlaws every sort of idolatry in any form whatsoever. It also forbids the making, the actual physical construction of any image that we might worship.
New car.
Anything.
No.
Yep. In their context, everything was an idol, statue, something depicted. We looked at some of them, you know, when we looked at the plagues and the different gods and goddesses. I've seen some of those, you know, going to foreign countries and stuff. Haiti is a very, you know, voodoo is a big deal there. I went to, when I went to Africa, I noticed there's like little amulets tied around like little kids' ankles, and they had gone to like the witch doctor in the tribe, and they had put like a little spell on that, or protecting or healing or something, and did the juju and tied it around their little foot. Matter of fact, one of the things, like I was told, I wear you know, bracelets and different stuff like that. And they're like, don't wear anything on your arms whatsoever. Nothing like around your neck. None of that stuff, because it's interpreted as, you know, you've been to a witch doctor or something, and it just kind of defeats the purpose of what you're, talking about. Little things like that we don't take for granted. But I've seen, the carvings, the tribal, carvings that, they might have a little temple or a little shrine in their village, dedicated specifically for those things. But, these folks, all their lives, they wake up every morning and any direction that they turned and looked, they saw idols. And God's like, none. It also includes an explanation of how seriously God takes idolatry. And Jeff, we translate that to our culture now, and we don't. Anything that takes our worship away from God, and I think our own idolatry, like in self. I've seen, parents make kids their idols. That's their life. They kind of go way past nurturing parents, and it's like they're going to do this, and we worship them, and our jobs, stuff. Anything like that. But in its context, it was like a real statue. Once again, when they thought, what they build? An idol, a gold calf. It was an idol. It was familiar. They ate the spoil. They knew that. They'd seen that they'd grown up, and so the nature of idolatry is not just a practice of worshiping a statue or picture or a focal point of worship. It is an entire elaborate religious system and lifestyle, all of it running counter to what God desired and desires true worship to be. And people may, you all won't, but people that watch on the live stream, pictures of the Virgin Mary, the crucifixes of Jesus, the rosary. All those things, those are worship. The saints, those kind of things. We have our own little sacred cows too. We do in our church. Every church, any church that doesn't, it might be. It might be a piece of furniture. It might be, a memorial stone. It might. It's just kind of good intentions, but then some kind of hold a little bit stronger feelings about it. And what it's done is, especially on Sunday morning or something, if it takes our worship off God and we fixate on that, it's become an idol. And so it happens so easily. That's the thing. But God is just listen, it's not just you. I got this little Juju statue in my house. Me and my family, we pray to it, and we kind of rub its head or its belly, for good luck or whatever. It's it's an entire religious system that is completely opposite of me. And you're not to have anything to do with it because it's not true worship. Throughout the history of Israel, idolatry was a struggle with the people constantly. And they were punished over and over and over again. People are attracted to idolatry. Satan is just hey, he knows. You gotta worship something. They're drawn away from true worship. I can draw you away from true worship. I can draw you away from that. Anybody got anything to add to that one? I've heard people say, "Well, I don't have a little carved statue or nothing like that." That's kind of a lupo. It's not really a lupo. It's but that's what he meant. That's where it starts and everything. All right, so number 3, verse 7, you shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. The primary meaning of misuse the name of the Lord would appear to be invoking his name as a promise of one's word. I guarantee you that my promise is true, or Yahweh may kill me or otherwise punish me if I don't keep my promise. Today somebody might say, I swear on a stack of Bibles, I'm telling the truth. Even the oath in court where you place your hand on the Bible, sometimes I think they're doing away with that. But swearing to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help your God, could be by some interpreted as breaking this command, even though most people see that as a form of motivation to tell the truth. Now that's kind of like, you promise on the Bible that you're going to tell the truth. Well, if you don't believe in God and the Word of God, placing your hand on the Bible really doesn't mean it's just, it doesn't mean anything anyway. It's not going to make you more apt to tell the truth. Yeah. This command also includes the misuse of God's name, from making light of it, overtly mocking it, or being disrespectful to God in any way. God's name signified his very essence. To speak his name was to recognize his greatness, his power, and his holiness. If you turn to Matthew, here's one of those parallels again. Matthew 5:33 through 37, the Sermon on the Mount.
Matthew 5 what?
33 through 37. He says, again, you have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not swear falsely, but shall perform to the Lord what you have sworn. But I say to you, do not take an oath at all, either by heaven, or for it is the throne of God, or by the earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great King. And do not take an oath by your head, for you cannot make one hair white or black. Let what you say be simply yes or no. Anything more than this comes from evil. Let your yes be yes, and your no be no.
That makes sense, because you talk to some people and they'll start saying, you know me, I wouldn't lie to you.
Yeah.
So does that mean everything else you've ever told me has been a lie?
That's right.
You're telling me this is true.
Yeah. That's a true story.
Yeah, I tell you,
They
this
start
is
out,
true.
this is a true story.
Everything else has been a lie.
Yeah, we're
Okay,
assuming
gotcha.
that you're going to tell a not true one. Well, God's name is salvation and should be treated with the highest respect. The Word of God was so sacred to many of the Jews that they wouldn't even speak it. They refer to God simply as Hashem, H-A-S-H-E-M. That's Hebrew for the name. Other nations would refer to him as the God of Israel, but not Yahweh. Even today, many Jews make no attempt to use or even pronounce the name. And in some modern Jewish publications that do use the word, they will not spell it out completely in order to follow this command. So they'll just use a few of the letters of Yahweh. They won't completely spell it out. I don't. That's how strongly they feel about that command. I mean, like, they would consider me breaking the commandment right there.
Yeah, I've seen that online. People will type G-D, God, and leave the O out, so they're not putting the whole word and
And
the
I,
whole name.
I hope y'all know that. I mean, I mean nothing but respect and teaching and praising his name, because I understand it and everything, but I don't feel like I'm breaking the commandment by using that in that way. There's other ways that if I used it, I'd be breaking it, and y'all probably take me outside behind the building and pummel me, and you should. But anybody got anything to add to that?
But they would use other, not really names for God. I don't know how to.
The Lord is my banner.
You know, like those El
Jehovah
Shaddai
Rapha.
or Adonai.
Yes,
or
yes. When they mark places or when something he did something,
different-
they would he is my refuge, and they had that's but they would
I mean, we could kind of be, to use God, that what we say God is not the name of God that he gave the covenant name.
right.
So is that like a loophole?
Even
Could you look at it that way, the same way that they would use a different word?
I think I've taught even when I read the word here Yahweh, they would consider it. They'd be like, oh, you broke the commandment.
Say it.
But even if I chose to use Yahweh in there, I still don't. I feel like that's not misusing His name, because I understand His greatness and I fear that. I get all that, and so. But this is they were at the base of the mountain. They heard Him speak, and they didn't want no more of it. I mean, they were terrified. So that probably is just like, we're so afraid that we don't even want to speak His name. And I get that part of it. That's kind of the fear and the respect and the awe and wonder of being just kind of like shook, like, oh, He truly is great, because that mountain was shaking, and it's just carried over. So number 4 is it starts in verse 8. It says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the 7th day is the Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, you or your son or your daughter or your male servant, your female servant, or your livestock, or the sojourner who is within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that is in them, and rested on the 7th day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. I think sometimes when we look at this and interpret this, we get kind of wrapped up in the whole don't work on Sunday. And that's part of it. I think verse 11 explains the main reasons. I think he says, for instance, he's making that connection there. Sabbath is the English of the Hebrew word sabbat, which meant stopping, stoppage, or cessation. The Sabbath is the stopping day on which one's regular work ceases, both for the sake of giving laborers a break from their daily routine, but provided a day to focus on God. Most English translations say, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. But the more accurate translation is, remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. A day belonging to God. This is not just a brain exercise, thinking about it in your mind for a few minutes, but it requires an action or the follower to act in a certain way. It's not like I wake up on Sunday morning, I'm like, yeah, I'm good. It requires us to act or respond in a certain way. So how are we to follow it? I'm glad you asked that question. Verse 9-10 tells us, it says, work 6 days, but on the 7th, no one in the Israelite community, remember, this is given to the Israelite nation. I'm not giving us like saying go out and work everything. I'm just I'm translating it now, interpreting it now in its original context. No one in the Israelite community, not even servants, animals, or foreigners, are to work. So the next question you have is like, what is defined as work? I'm glad you asked that. Unfortunately, it doesn't say. It doesn't say. And we don't know whether the ancient Israelites understood it either. We can assume maybe they did. Work to them was what?
Pretty much everything.
Burdensome. They were whipped. They were in slavery. It was hard. That was all they ever knew. They didn't get a break. So they're probably like, work? A day off? What? You know, they had no idea. The pattern of work is 6 days, rest on 7, and it follows the creation order of God. And I think what I meant by verse 11 kind of explaining the people's work week is a reflection, a reminder of the creation week. The Sabbath was a reminder of the covenant with God. As they stopped to worship, they demonstrated that they were keeping the covenant. And I think sometimes we get wrapped up in the work, no work. To actually, it's a reminder of the covenant with God. They stopped to worship. That demonstrated they're keeping the covenant. So what is the context? Another great question. Everybody stopped doing anything and just hang out at church and visit with God. Is that what they mean there? Now, I'm trying to remember because I was a kid. I'm like, by the way, while I digress here, I know it's 7:02. IHOP has a 55 and above menu. I was so excited. I was like, woohoo! Good discount. But I remember when like nothing in town was open. It's the little things, Miss Leslie. I mean, I've kind of been that in between. Listen, there was a little girl that I could see it, even I met a little girl. She's working at KFC one day. And I ordered my lunch, and I went back and I looked at my ticket, and she gave me the senior discount. This was like 5 years ago.
It should go ahead.
It must be. I didn't know whether to get mad or go hug her neck. I saved $2.39. I was like, woo! But I remember, like, as a boy, everything in town was shut down.
Oh, yeah.
It was just like,
Sunday, blue law.
yeah, that's it. Isn't that crazy? That's how.
It's crazy now.
It
It
is.
wasn't crazy then.
It's to think that it was like, yeah. And so, verses 9 through 10. It prohibits duplicating on the Sabbath any of the usual labors of the other 6 that can possibly be stopped without actually causing someone or something harm. People and animals would still need to be fed, or minimal necessary chores only. They're saying, Bill just can't, he's just like, it's Sabbath, I'm going to keep it holy. He's, or Bob, they got to, yeah, they got to do that. They got to do
And then
that.
the oxen was in the ditch.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And so that's kind of like, but if prohibits duplicating on the Sabbath any of the usual labors of the other 6 days that can possibly be stopped without actually causing someone or something harm. If you don't need to do it, don't do it. Verse 11, God is the ultimate example. He created everything in 6 days and rested on the 7th, making it a holy day of remembering Him. We are to follow His example. Yeah, if I get sick and I need, on Sunday, I really, hope the hospital's open. And my doctor, those kind of things, or if I'm getting robbed or something like that on a Sunday, I was like, oh, please remember to say, it's a common sense kind of thing. But even in that, I know I had to work a lot of Sundays. I've had to work Sundays before and stuff too. And I hated missing church, but I understood, it was required of me at that time. The job required it, and I reflected on God. I understood that. I got that. I missed not being there. So you switch to the New Testament. I mentioned this earlier. The religious leaders had complicated the law, making it difficult on the people. They made silly laws that were ridiculous to follow to make themselves look more spiritual. Jesus comes along. He busted up that little whole setup. He healed on the Sabbath because he, in essence, was the Sabbath. And I think about that. He says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and you shall find rest." You find rest in him because he is the Sabbath. And so I hope you find...
He said the Sabbath was made for man, man was not made for the Sabbath. I think that God knew when he made us, we needed a day of rest. Our bodies need.
They do. I need one. I need a nap bad right now. I'm in Charlotte.
Everybody needs a day of rest.
That's your senior discount.
That's it. It's true. I mean, and you know, it catches up with you eventually. People that work around the clock and everything, and just and you know, it's God's kind of like saying, "Look, I did all this in 6 days." But well, that's because you're God. But
But he's still resting.
he's still rested. That's right. Right. Well, anybody else got anything? I enjoyed going back over them and looking at them. It's kind of one of those things we just kind of like, yeah, we've known and grown up, you know, being exposed to all our.
It seems kind of strange how it's pretty much a worldwide standard for 7 days in a week, even among people who don't believe in God. That's kind of one of those universal things that points to the creation story being true.
Anybody else got anything? I'm going to go ahead and dismiss our online folks.